I once had simple and wonderfully happy summers in Japan that I'll never forget. The village where my grandparents lived was an incredibly peaceful place, completely isolated from the noisy, bustling city. Even though it was a small village, the affection among its residents was warm and overflowing. Every dirt path, every moss-covered roof held a story, a beautiful memory. My grandparents' house had a large, lush green garden all year round and a backyard shaded by ancient trees. That was my personal paradise, where I often lay stretched out on the soft grass, gazing up at the vast blue sky. I felt every cool breeze caress my skin and listened to the constant hum of cicadas like an endless symphony on sweltering summer days. The scent of fresh grass, damp earth, and even the faint aroma of jasmine from the garden corner were all fragrances I longed for when I was away from this place. My grandfather, with his kind eyes and warm smile, often made me refreshing cold teas to quench my thirst after hours of playing. My grandmother, with her skillful hands, always baked delicious, warm rice cakes in funny shapes that I adored. Those memories now feel like a distant, hazy dream, because in the summer when I was 8, everything changed forever in a terrifying and irreparable way. It left a deep scar on my mind that would never heal. That year, my parents took me back to Japan as they did every year, following our usual family schedule. They spent a few days resting with my grandparents, enjoying the cozy family atmosphere, and then set off for another region to travel, leaving me to stay with my grandparents. I was delighted to stay in that house where I always felt safe and loved. One sweltering afternoon, the scorching sun of the Japanese summer seemed to make everything even quieter. I was playing alone in the backyard, trying to find a cool spot under the shade of an old tree. I lay down on the soft grass, gazed up at the clear blue sky without a single cloud, and closed my eyes, enjoying the rare stillness. Suddenly, a strange sound echoed. It was a human whisper, a deep, muffled sound as if coming from a bottomless well, carrying with it dampness and chill. At first, I thought I was just imagining things, perhaps the sound of wind rustling through the leaves or some insect. But then the sound repeated, clearer, more persistent, as if calling my name in the void. I slowly opened my eyes, my heart pounding in my chest. I turned my head towards the end of the yard, where there was a nearly 3-meter-high wooden fence, sturdily built to ensure privacy. And then I saw an old, faded straw hat slowly appearing above the fence. Beneath the hat was a pale face, frighteningly white, as if it had never been exposed to sunlight. Its eyes were deep-set, pitch black like two bottomless hollows, staring straight at me. I could feel that cold, emotionless gaze piercing through the air. The woman was impossibly tall. Even standing behind the fence, her upper body was clearly visible. She didn't move an inch, as still as a statue, but the whispering sound continued incessantly, repeating indistinct words like a curse or a summons to death. A shiver ran down my spine. I was utterly terrified. My whole body trembling, I immediately sprang up and ran like lightning into the house, my heart pounding as if it wanted to burst out of my chest. I gasped for breath, trying to tell my grandparents what I had just seen and heard. At first, my grandparents remained calm, thinking I was just imagining things or telling a mischievous story. They smiled reassuringly, trying to soothe my childish fears. But then, when I imitated that whisper, that deep, eerie sound I had just heard, my grandparents' faces instantly turned ashen. Their smiles vanished, replaced by utter horror. My grandfather abruptly stood up, his wooden chair clattering to the floor. My grandmother, her hands trembling, dropped the teacup she was holding, shattering it into many pieces. Their eyes were no longer calm, but filled with extreme dread. My grandfather frantically questioned me about the woman's appearance, height, and exact position. His every question carried an urgency, an extreme worry, as if he was trying to grasp something incredibly dangerous. Soon after, while I was still trembling with fear, a strange woman entered the house. Her name was Kasha, an elderly woman with silver hair and sharp eyes, yet radiating an air of mystery. She didn't say much, just silently approached me, her face solemn. She handed me a small, crumpled, old piece of paper, covered in ancient symbols I had never seen before. They looked like strange, arcane charms. Kasha looked directly into my eyes, her voice low but firm. Child, hold on to this paper. Never let go of it, no matter what happens, do you understand? Absolutely never let go. I sensed the urgency in her words, and instinctively I clutched the paper tightly in my palm. That evening, a chilling and strange preparation took place. I was taken to a room on the second floor, a room I had never been allowed to use before, always kept locked. When I entered, I realized it was completely different from the other rooms in the house. All the windows were covered with newspaper. Not a single ray of light could penetrate. On those newspaper sheets, strange and complex symbols were drawn in black ink, looking like protective charms or ancient drawings. They made me feel a shiver of dread. In the four corners of the room, my grandparents carefully placed 4 bowls of pure white salt. In the center of the room was a small wooden Buddha statue, solemnly placed on an old wooden box. Next to the statue was a blue plastic bucket empty. My grandparents looked at me with worried eyes, instructing me on things that an 8-year-old child could hardly fully comprehend. You must not leave this room under any circumstances. Do not open the door, even if you hear anyone calling your name, even if it's grandpa's or grandma's voice. You must remember this well, never disobey us. Their words carried a gravity I had never seen before. After giving their instructions, they locked the door from the outside, leaving me alone in the dark, gloomy room. Only the dim yellow light from an old light bulb shone down, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The faint, strong scent of incense filled the air, making the space even more somber and oppressive. I huddled on the mattress, feeling an invisible dread envelop me. In that sealed room, I couldn't fall asleep at all. Anxiety and fear constantly surrounded me. The room seemed to suffocate me. Every tiny sound made me jump. I lay huddled in bed, still clutching the paper Kasha had given me, feeling like it was the only thread connecting me to safety. Around 1 a.m., when the silence was eerily profound, a knock echoed. 3 clear, distinct knocks on the window pane, as if trying to break through the thick layers of newspaper. Knock, dot, knock, dot, dot, knock, dot, 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 double, quote. My heart felt like it stopped beating. My whole body froze with fear, unable to move even a finger. Then a deep, warm voice called my name. Child, it's Grandpa. You don't need to be afraid anymore. I'm coming in to be with you. The voice sounded exactly like my grandfather's, but there was something wrong, a slight inaccuracy that only a child's instinct could perceive. It sounded dot dot, artificial, like an imperfect copy. I glanced at the 4 bowls of white salt in the corners of the room. One bowl was bubbling with black froth, emitting a foul odor, as if it was absorbing something evil. My fear escalated to its peak. I clutched the paper Kasha had given me even tighter, my knuckles white from the grip. I trembled, muttering the prayers I knew, even though I didn't fully understand their meaning. The knocks resumed, this time a horrifying scratching sound on the window pane, as if something with sharp claws was trying to tear through the newspaper to get in. Then the whisper returned, clearer now, closer, as if it was right next to my ear, calling my name in an eerie voice. Little one, dot, 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 come out to me, dot, dot, dot. I squeezed my eyes shut, pulling the blanket over my head, trying to push those terrifying sounds out of my mind. Somehow, perhaps from sheer exhaustion and terror, I drifted off to sleep in utter dread. The next morning, when my grandmother opened the room door, she burst into tears of relief when she saw that I was still alive, still intact. Those were tears of profound relief and gratitude. They didn't say another word about what had happened last night, as if they wanted to bury that horrifying memory. Only their anxious and hurried glances told me that it wasn't over. They led me out to a black van already parked outside the gate. The van looked old and ordinary, but inside were 8 men, all my relatives, people I had never met before, or only briefly seen at large family gatherings. Everyone had tense expressions, ready for a dangerous journey. Kasha sat in the driver's seat, clutching the steering wheel, her eyes determined. My grandfather sat in the lead car in front, constantly checking the rearview mirror, his face full of worry. The van started slowly, gradually rolling down the familiar village road. We drove through misty forests where sunlight struggled to penetrate. The atmosphere in the van was suffocatingly heavy. About 10 minutes later, as we drove deeper into the forest, I heard that whisper again. This time, it didn't just come from one direction, but seemed to envelop the entire vehicle from all sides. Then the knocking resumed, this time on both windows of the van, more frantic and terrifying than ever. The strange thing was that no one else in the car, besides me, heard the whispering voice. But everyone clearly heard the knocking, the scratching sounds against the car windows. One of the men shouted, his voice filled with panic. "Close your eyes! Everyone close your eyes! Don't look!" I clutched the paper in my hand, shut my eyes tightly, and tried not to look outside. I could feel the trembling of the adults around me, the extreme tension in the air. The knocking continued for a long time, as if something was clinging to the vehicle, unwilling to let go. After a while, perhaps because we had crossed some boundary, or because of the paper's protection, the knocking finally ceased. Silence returned, but it wasn't a peaceful silence. It was the haunting quiet after a nightmare. My family took me straight to the airport without a moment's delay. They bought me a plane ticket back to America immediately. Since that day, I have never returned to Japan. Kasha's paper remained carefully kept by me, like a treasure, a protective charm. In the years that followed, I lived with terrifying dread. I constantly had nightmares. In my dreams, I always saw the scene of my grandparents' backyard, the tall wooden fence, and the mysterious straw hat appearing above it. The eerie whisper still echoed, relentlessly calling my name like an eternal curse. Little one ... little one. Come back to me ... Each time I woke up, I was drenched in sweat, my heart pounding, and the feeling of fear was still raw. When my grandfather passed away a few years later, he left me a handwritten letter. In it, his trembling handwriting stated, "My dear grandchild, HACHISHAKUSAMA has not disappeared. It cannot disappear, it is merely waiting. It waits for the right moment to find those who have seen it." He gave me his final instructions, chilling warnings. You must never, under any circumstances, return to the old village. And you must remember this well. If one day you hear 3 knocks on your door, never, absolutely never open the door. No matter who calls, no matter how familiar the voice, never answer and never open the door. His final words instilled in me a profound dread, a constant unease. I knew that wherever I went, the haunting called HACHISHAKUSAMA would always pursue me. 10 years had passed since that horrifying night. I had tried to live as normal a life as possible, attempting to push those painful memories deep into my mind. I had my own family now, a relatively stable life in America. Nightmares still visited occasionally, but not as frequently as before. One late night, as I was preparing for bed, my mobile phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number, but I answered anyway. My grandmother's voice came through the other end, faint and sorrowful, as if she was struggling for every breath. My dear grandchild, I'm very sick. I want to see you one last time. Before I go." My heart tightened. A strong wave of longing for my grandparents suddenly surged. Even though I had my own family, my grandparents were still a part of my flesh and blood. I was moved to tears, my eyes welling up. In that moment of weakness, I almost agreed. But then, my grandfather's warning echoed in my mind. A question unexpectedly slipped out of my mouth, a question I hadn't thought about beforehand. "Is it safe now, Grandma? Is everything over?" I asked, almost unconsciously, but it was the most important question. The other end of the line went ominously silent. A long, heavy silence, without a sound, without a breath. My heart pounded. Then, a deep, hoarse voice, not my grandmother's, but the eerie whisper I had heard 10 years ago, echoed from the phone's receiver. "Go on. Sleep now. Little one." If you found this story chilling, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next horror stories, and share it with your friends. Who knows, maybe someone else has heard that whisper too. Or will hear it tonight.